just wanted to let you know that we're having a special episode tonight of the Masonic Roundtable where we are going to whisper some good counsel into your ears. So stay tuned for more.
And you're going to like it.
This is your ASMR experience of the Masonic Roundtable.
En español.
Good evening, all. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, you can send questions, comments, and good counsel to our Facebook event page, as well as the YouTube chat running alongside this YouTube video. So hello and good evening to all of our live viewers. You know me. My name's John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. We have a small but skeleton crew tonight, followed up with the one, the only, the one, Sepulveda. Good evening, Juan.
Good evening, John, Jason. Brothers, thank you for joining us tonight on the Masonic Roundtable. My name is Juan Sepulveda, and I am the Senior Deacon of Orange Blossom Lodge, number 80 in sunny Kissimmee, Florida, and the brother behind AppliedFreemasonry.com. Good evening, brothers.
Good evening, good evening. And to finish out the three-legged stool, Jason Richards.
The TMR tripod.
Yes, the tripod.
Jason Richards here. Hi, everybody. Past Master Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, thank you. And as always, we want to give a special shout out to our patrons who've been supporting the show for the past year, making sure that we keep Masonic education free and on the internet for a long time. And so, again, thank you for all your support. We even had an upgrade to Juan's computer over the past week, thanks to the patrons of this show. So, yes, this guy is so happy to be up and running with tech. It's great to see a huge smile on his face, thanks to you. So really, it really means a lot, and all that goes right back into the show. So thank you very much for that. We've been out for like 2 whole weeks. This has been really unprecedented for the Masonic Roundtable. We tried to go even through kind of the Christmas break, but when we had a comedy of errors of myself being on travel for work and then going on vacation, Jason moving around to a new undisclosed location. He's almost got the Nick Johnson basement, creepy hostage situation going on there.
It's just because I haven't had time to decorate.
That's right.
There's nothing in this room.
I know, it's awkward.
Except my computer.
It's awkward not seeing your picture behind you.
I know.
You're so vain. All right. So, but we're back.
I just appreciate good art.
That's it. So it's great to finally be back into the swing of things with another great show, one that we've been trying to think about for a long time. And so tonight's episode, we wanted to get to cover the topic of whispering good counsel into a brother's ear. So this is not a directive, maybe a charge. It depends on the jurisdiction, but it is something that we, as members of this fraternity, have the responsibility to do. And we want to discuss what it means to whisper good counsel into the ear of an erring brother, so that they can improve themselves in Masonry, improve themselves in their daily life, and however we wish to apply it. So I think we'll have some really good discussions, interpretations, and analysis of what that means. And so I'm going to open it up, as usual, to kind of open the question with, what is this concept of whispering good counsel? What does that mean in English? Because I don't, got to dumb it down for me. Jason, what does that mean?
It means when you see something going on, you don't yell at your brother or embarrass your brother in front of a bunch of people. You take him aside and you just give him a little bit of advice and try to perhaps straighten his course out.
If you see something, say something.
Say something. Yes.
Right? No, we're not saying call 911 and report your brothers as terrorists. No, we're saying that.
I'd like to report too many pins.
Yes. How about you, Juan? Would you agree with that, or would you add to that definition? How would you improve that?
Well, if we break it into chunks,
Mm-hmm.
the whispering component is that cautious approach in
Mm-hmm.
your
Not yell.
instruction, not yell. Wise
Mm-hmm.
is the operative word, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Offering counsel is one thing, but offering wise counsel requires that you're in a position to provide wise counsel, whether it is because you know what the right thing to do is, you know the brother and his circumstances, you are being prudent in the timing of your intervention. So the wisdom component, I think, in that particular phrase is the most important one. And because anybody can give counsel, anybody has an opinion, but are they all wise?
Awesome.
Maybe not.
No, I love the way you deconstructed that because another thing that I enjoy about Freemasonry, when you really study the ritual, if done right, every word has a purpose. I learned a lot of that from this guy over here, Jason, as a grammar Nazi and syntactical guru. When he started breaking things down for me, it makes things make more sense, and it actually sets up a structure of why we do the things we do, and then also gives you the legal boundaries of what you can and can't do, right? And so, but whispering wise counsel. So, now it's left to the interpretation of each brother of what that wise counsel is. But then now my next question leads into that is, why would someone want to do that? Why would someone want to whisper wise counsel into another brother's ear? What kind of scenarios lead to needing to do that? Juan?
If you perhaps see that your brother is about to make a mistake that is going to either embarrass him, get him in trouble, embarrass the fraternity, or get the fraternity in trouble, you may want to have this kind of intervention. Many times we hear the whispering of wise counsel associated with someone not doing ritual correctly, or perhaps trying to add or forgetting something from a prescribed procedure. But I think that this particular advice is not limited to just Masonic things. If you,
Interesting.
yeah, and this is one that I have experienced quite often, because when I travel or even when I go to lodge, there is an opportunity for me to go out after and spend some fellowship time with the brothers in a non-Masonic setting. So you actually get to see how brothers behave out in the wild. And out in the wild is not necessarily an understatement. Sometimes let's say, for example, that someone is married and you all go out to have some drinks. If you have the brother actually just flirting up a storm with the waitress, perhaps you might want to just elbow him. It's like, hey, bro.
So it's not just for
I've
inside the
never
lodge.
seen that happen.
No.
Ever.
No, it's hypotheticals, I'm saying.
Yes,
obviously.
hypothetically. Yes. Remind me to
Like
nudge you
every
later.
shrine event I've ever been to.
And another way you can interpret that is it doesn't have to be for a negative reason. It just says wise counsel. So it doesn't, necessarily mean that the error was for a bad reason. You can whisper wise counsel and tell someone, "Hey, you did a really good job. You can in this ritual, you did a real that. Hey, I really like what you're doing. Keep it up." And so that wise counsel, while usually implied for the correcting someone in the error of their ways, could also apply for positive as well. So that is wise as well. Something to think about. Yep. Anything else you want to build on top of that, Jason, as far as when to apply?
Well, I think it goes back to the core foundational purpose of Freemasonry, which is self-improvement, and by extension, the improvement of your brothers. So if we think of Masonry as an exercise to improve ourselves and make ourselves better men, better fathers, better citizens, then it would follow that we would need to learn from each other and take an active role in the betterment of our brethren. And so that's where whispering good counsel is fundamental to who we are as an organization and members within it.
Whoa! I did not sign up to be chastised by other brothers who are trying to tell me what to do. Right? I'm here to improve myself. I'm not here to take all this counsel from people.
Sanctification is a contact sport.
Yes. Now, that brings up another good point. Do you have to apply it in all cases? So if someone's giving you advice, does that mean that you have to listen to them?
No, there's no. So a lot of Masons are charged with whispering good counsel in your brother's ear, but there's no recipient piece to that to say, and when a brother whispers good counsel in your ear, you must follow it.
So says the ritualist.
You have I think a moral obligation as a Freemason to help better your fellow brethren and men through the whispering of good counsel and giving of advice, but it's incumbent upon them to think for themselves and decide whether or not to follow that advice. Because I could be giving bad advice.
Yeah. I do think that the attentive ear would be a good quality for a brother to have. And in the sense where you tried as best as possible to develop discernment when it comes to being able to receive and do a triage of sorts when it comes to the information giving to you. We've seen this time and time again where you have younger brothers who are very wise, and then you have some older brothers who perhaps are set in their ways and are serving as some sort of I don't want to say obstacle, but I am saying obstacle. So you see this. I'm not saying not all brothers who have been in the fraternity for a long time, but there are some people who have set themselves in their ways. They don't like change. They object to anything. They don't give people an opportunity to grow. They don't give people room to grow. So you have to know who you're receiving the counsel from and whether it is pertinent to your circumstance, whether it's wise for you to then turn around and attempt to apply it.
No, see, that's one piece of this that I feel fascinating. As a young Mason, getting that charge to say, it's now your responsibility. It is one of your duties that you have now as a Mason to correct erring brothers. It doesn't say based on what their title is. And so that means even in ritual, even in the jurisdictional things, whatever it may be, you are now empowered as the youngest Mason that you can correct the oldest past master of that lodge. Now, we try to hold past masters and all that with respect for what they've done and contributed to the craft, but they are humans as well. They are not inerrant, and what I love about this is the charge gives you full permission to correct them. And so that's one thing I wish I did more of as a young Mason, is to, when I knew that they were saying the ritual wrong, or when I knew that they probably weren't subduing all their passions, both in lodge and outside of lodge, I felt that, they know what they're doing because they're a past master. They've been around the block a couple times. I should just kind of stay back and just observe a little bit more. No. I got the same charge they did. That I have all the right to go up to them in a kind way, not in a nasty way, not in a condescending way, but in a helpful way, to offer up some sort of suggestion for improvement.
John's next book, by the way, is How to Win Friends and Influence People and Piss Off Your Entire Lodge.
Yes, exactly. Hey, you know what? I don't like the way you do things around here. Back in my year. But I mean, I think that's very empowering if
Yeah.
if you apply it. Um, but it can result in some awkward situations. I mean,
Yeah.
there's already some folks in the YouTube chat that are sharing scenarios already of where they've had to interject in some very hostile or awkward scenarios.
Well,
Yeah. And
it's interesting. Go ahead,
go
Juan.
ahead.
I said
All
it's interesting because we at some point we need to actually dissect the word good because it's whispering good counsel. And so when you look at whispering good counsel or wise counsel, it's not just the content of the counsel. It's, like we've mentioned, it is the situation and the context behind it. It is how you say it. It is where you say it. It is in what situation. So there are all of these facets to the word good that require some interpersonal savvy and some finesse to make sure that it's appropriate and gives the brother the best chance to take it to heart, and I think the least or the lowest chance to perhaps embarrass him or make him feel foolish, because that just if the brother is feeling foolish and gets defensive, you might as well stop talking because he's not going to hear what you're saying.
Yeah. There's an advice that I've come across in different organizations and different corporate teachings where when you're trying to offer some feedback as best as possible, try to offer it in using the sandwich method where
What's
you
the sandwich method,
open.
Juan?
I'm glad you asked. It's lettuce, a bacon, and a tomato.
Love
It
it.
is yeah. So basically,
And
you
mayo.
open the conversation with something positive. In a sense, you are driving their attention to you via a positive connection. So let's say, for example, it's ritual. There has to be something positive from whatever the person is doing. And you can say, you know what, I really like your cadence when you're approaching the altar. Uh, Here's one thing I would suggest: if next time when you do that, do so in this manner. But everything else looked great, so you're doing great. That's one way to correct someone when it comes to ritual. So you open with something positive, you deliver the goods in the middle, and by goods mean the correction, and then you close with some sort of positive thing. Now, there's
You
someone
have to be
listening to
careful
this.
though, because
Mhm.
I'm going to fight you on this.
Well,
Uh-oh.
so you might want to hear this. There is
Okay.
someone listening to this who is thinking, well, Juan, that doesn't really work. That doesn't work in our scenario. It's going to be a pessimist about it. That's fine. Maybe you have a lot of trouble communicating with people. Don't take it personal.
Oh, you went
I
there.
don't. I don't want. I'm not trying to attack you,
Me.
but you may be the problem.
Yes, if you're surrounded by jerks, maybe it's not them.
Maybe it's you. No,
Uh,
but very quick.
So
But what I mean is like there
you
is some
have very
pushback when it
quick.
comes to that.
No,
there,
go
there,
ahead.
there will be pushback when it comes to that, but that's just one of many different tactics that you can use in order to effectively reach another individual when they're in error.
you know what kind of sandwich we call that? That's a crap sandwich.
It's an S sandwich.
You just stack it
And
right in there.
that's the thing. The issue there is you run the risk of being overly formulaic. You run the risk of distracting the brother from the intent of the message, and you run the risk of being taken as being completely insincere. Um, a brother could say, "Oh, you just buttered me up to slap me across the face." And so, while I agree that it's one method that you could use, you really have to identify the situation
Right.
and really know the brother and how he's going to react. Because if he's someone who just is kind of all over the place and constantly distracted, you might not want to give him too much to chew on at one time. Say,
Yeah.
hey, 1 second, have you thought about doing this? I think it'd be helpful. Okay, see you later. That might be perfectly acceptable, and in a way that the brother can digest it. What we're really talking about here is using the first three liberal arts and sciences to help improve yourself and your brother in Masonry.
Yeah, if I may, I wanted to point out Brother Sid Vasquez from one of the most amazing lodges in Central Florida, Orange Blossom Lodge number 80. He mentions something. He says it's all about cultivating rapport, and I just want to make sure that brothers take this to heart. When I'm talking about the sandwich method, it doesn't necessarily mean in one phrase. So if your initial interactions throughout the whole day with this person are positive, because you can make them positive, you then something happened and you notice that they do something negative, then you go ahead and intervene directly and very tactfully, but very directly, so that there's no misunderstanding about what the correction is. But you make sure that this person doesn't go home without there being some positive bun to top it off. So this method is not just useful in one single phrase. You could be creating that rapport initially in order for you to have the confidence to approach them with more reach, especially
Juan,
if you're talking about someone.
Are
Go
you
ahead.
saying you don't want none unless you got buns, hon?
Big buns, little meat, another big bun.
Yes.
You got
Okay,
it.
please continue.
You got it. No, but it's true, and that should be the way that we interact. Ideally, even if we are not able to do that at the beginning of cultivating a relationship with the brothers, that should be part of the goal. That the majority of the interactions you have with them are positive, so that when you have a negative one, or one that perhaps could be perceived as an attack or as an affront, then the likelihood of them being receptive to you is much higher, because you've already been working at establishing that good rapport.
So are you saying we should just be nice to everybody and be generally good people? And then maybe people will take us more seriously?
That's a stretch.
Okay.
I don't know. Don't know if it's going to work. Let's see how that plays off.
Then you have to understand that there are just some folks who just are not going to be receptive.
Right.
And you can't, I mean, you can't let it get you down when.
That's a good point.
Go ahead.
That's a great point, because you could actually end up being the jerk when you're trying to do the right thing. It could be bad just because this scenario isn't right, the environment's not right, they aren't in a good state of mind for whatever reasons. Maybe they're always a jerk, maybe they just had a bad day at work that day, So there's a variety of reasons, but it could all fail. Should that prevent you from actually trying in the first place? I don't think so.
It should.
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, there have been plenty of times in my own life where trying to whisper good counsel has gone awfully wrong. There was a time when John was master of the Patriot Lodge, where I tried to whisper some good counsel into the ear of another member who I have a tense relationship with. And I was nervous and stressed already, and it came out wrong and ended up escalating. And John had to take me aside afterward and say, you know what, Jason, you were in the wrong on that. And that was painful.
I don't remember that, but you did. That's interesting. You have to tell me more about that offline.
Yep.
But you remember that, and you did what you thought was right in the scenario. And that's the real lesson there, is to, even if it's awkward, even if it's uncomfortable, try to do what you think is right. Because we should be a self-correcting, self-sustaining fraternity. If you really think about it, we are all human. We are all full of errors. We are all going to fail at some point in time. And without a sacred band of brothers to take care of each other, what are we here for? What are we doing? Right? And so it's critically important that we actually do apply this right and privilege that we have to correct each other in a kind and friendly way, so that the fraternity as a whole gets better. So it's not just correcting that one brother, and we're trying to learn from each other and aim for self improvement, but that as we go out into the world, we're sharing that good counsel, and that's being paid forward. Does that make sense? So, one question for you:
Mhm.
Is this also does this only apply in real life, or does this apply maybe in the digital realm as well?
Yeah, that complicates things a little bit.
Just a
Uh,
tad.
just a little bit. Of course, if you spend any time whatsoever on social media, or have you perused the comment section of any YouTube video, regardless of how positive and uplifting it may be, uh, you will notice that there seems to be a swollen level of animosity and vitriol that it seems to permeate society today. And I describe this as keyboard cowards. These are people who they hide behind their keyboards in order for them to either for sport or entertainment be aggressive, just to get a reaction out of people, just to be edgy. And other people are just plainly pessimistic and negative and toxic. But you seem to see how loud this can be online. We have the good
And on the
fortune of
winding stairs, we ban those people.
yeah. We used to try to really engage with people and intervene, and the rule rather than the exception was that the people who naturally have that kind of negativity in their discourse online, they have a proportionally opposite propensity to listen to wise counsel or think that they're doing anything wrong. So it is a waste of time many times online to intervene and try to get people to reconsider their actions and their words. Um, so this particular advice becomes a little bit more challenging when it comes to online interactions. Do
I
we
mean,
have
yeah,
a
you can't
solution
you
for
can't just pull them aside digitally, right? It's much harder to do that. I mean, I guess you could private message them, DM them, whatever you want to call it. But as we all know, uh, things get lost in translation to
it?
from thoughts and emotions and body language to text on a screen.
Yeah.
That you lose
And
all that nonverbal communication.
There's a
and
there's a great video by Key and Peele that you all need to look up. Key and Peele texting, and it just brings that point home. So everybody go look it up after you're done with this episode.
obviously. Yeah, so do
So
we have a solution for this kind of negativity online? I I don't think we do. I know that we do our very best to foster the positive and allow the weight of the negative to topple over whomever is engaging in it. And that has worked very it has worked very positively for our group. We have close to 20,000 members from all over the world, very engaged. We have one of the most engaging Masonic groups on the internet, basically. And it we've had to take a stand uh, when it comes to setting rules. And I see brother Eric disagrees with me. He talks about restorative justice, that it works, and that's fine. If he can manage a group of online uh, crazy people and bring a few into the light, he's welcome to attempt it. I think that our efforts are better spent focusing on the people that are receptive, the people that are willing to listen, the people that are willing to change. Those are the people I want to engage with. Think about this. We have 7 billion people in this world. if you want to engage with the people that are the most negative, the most toxic, by all means, like that's everyone's prerogative. But what our numbers have shown when it comes to the interactions we have on the group is that it's a futile error. It's a futile attempt, and there may be one or two, and I can say this based on the interactions that we've had, of the people that we've actually engaged and approached them, said, brother, your response to this particular post was a tad aggressive, and that brother was only trying to do blank. Very few people would say, oh, my apologies, brother, I didn't mean to be disrespectful, and then they move on into a more positive engagement. The rule, that's the exception. The rule is that they fire back and either justify their aggressiveness or fail to see it.
Yeah, that's one of the logical fallacies of either the backfire effect or doubling down. They'll go twice as hard trying to defend themselves, even though they've been kind of caught in some sort of error. So the next question I have for you guys is, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, there may be a time where you're actually on the receiving end, where someone is trying to talk to you. I'm not saying that would ever happen, but in this magical make-up land where you could possibly be wrong. I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. And you actually have someone approach you, hopefully in a nice, respectful, honest way, of trying to correct you. What mindset should you be in order to let the greatest amount of peace and harmony prevail? Jason?
Wow. It all comes down to relationships.
Love it.
I think you have the biggest chance of success of being heard if you have a relationship and a meaningful relationship with the person that to whom you're whispering good counsel. I think that's probably, in my mind, the number one biggest discriminating factor in whether or not someone is going to listen to your advice or not.
Well, I'm saying, what about the other way around? What if you are on the receiving end and someone is giving you good counsel, or they're trying to give you good counsel, and you didn't know that you had made a mistake, you didn't know you had offended someone? How should you react to possibly being caught completely off guard of causing some sort of error?
Well, the first thing you can do is listen. It doesn't it doesn't hurt you to listen. You don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything.
So that just means wait for them to stop talking so you can then be in defense mode and just say your piece, right? That's the kind of listening you're talking about, right?
No, it's listening to absorb and listening without thinking about a response. So, the idea of active listening.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got different levels of listening. You've got the, you're completely ignoring them. You've got the, I'm going to interject here so you think I'm listening. You've got the listening so that you can formulate your response to fire back. And then there's actually listening to what they're saying and trying to understand the context and the thought and the intention behind the words that are coming out of their mouth. And you really need to invoke that last piece of listening. And honestly, it can be bad advice. It can be something you completely disagree with, but you're not going to be able to make that determination unless you really hear what they have to say. And so it's really hard, especially for me sometimes, to kind of stuff that pride down and just sit and say, okay, I'm going to listen to what you have to say. I might not have a response to it right now, because for me, I'm someone who needs to internalize and process before I actually have a response to something, especially when it's a critique or a criticism aimed at me. But the single best thing you can do, which is much easier if you have a good relationship with the person, is to just sit, drop the pretense, listen, and try to understand. And then you can think about it and make up your mind as far as what you want to do with it, if anything. But your duty on the receiving end is to listen to your brother and give him your time.
How else should you react, Juan?
Well, listening to someone's criticism is not easy, especially if your effort comes from a good place. If you feel that you're doing a good job, that you're putting a legitimate effort into things, like they say, ego is the enemy. But it's ever present. It's always there. And when someone says you did this wrong, it may feel like an attack. So the natural thing for us to do, like our visceral response, is going to be to defend ourselves. It's going to be to either stop the attack. It'll be either to attack in response. If you think about from a chess perspective, you either deflect the attack, you block the attack, or you reverse. You attack the attacker. And those are options that are natural for us to say. If someone says, "Well, you, why are you holding the rod this way?" If your response is, "Yeah, well, you're telling me that, but like when you walk over here, it's like you're sprinting," that doesn't address the problem. So listening with giving the person the benefit of the doubt, it's like they may be onto something. Maybe I'm doing that wrong. Many times we are doing things in a way that we feel is correct. And it takes a minute or two for us to step back and see, oh, you know what? I was rushing this a little,
Yeah,
or I did say that wrong.
I love your chess analogy there, and especially the three types of attacks, because it goes back to the limbic brain and the fight, flight, or freeze response that we
Hmm.
as human beings and all animals basically have as a instinctual evolutionary trait of when there's danger, which is when you're being approached that and you are being accosted, you're being intervened with, that
Threatened.
threatened. Right, you have basically three biological choices. You can fight it, which is a defense mode, which is again what we're all talking about trying to avoid, of just not listening, defending your actions, doubling down, backfiring effect. Um, there's flight, which is avoid the topic altogether. Like, oh crap, I gotta go. Like, I don't want to talk about this right now. This is uncomfortable. And hopefully if I hide, it'll go away. Or there's freeze and just like not listen, just shut down, just like be fine, whatever. Yeah, okay, I'll fix it later, and don't do anything about it. And so those are the three basic biological things. But we have an advanced prefrontal cortex. We have an adapted evolutionary brain where we're not reptilian. At least, we are Freemasons, so we're partly reptilian. But then we also have
Thanks,
the
David.
yes, we do have the additional ability to hold those emotions, and so we kind of the theme here has been empathy, both if you're giving correction as also if you're receiving correction. Be empathetic, but at the same time, realize that it's so much more powerful, so much more, and it's a skill you can learn. It's a skill you can practice, of active listening, of being able to hold your emotions, and more importantly, even be able to step away from your emotions. This gets into
Hmm.
some of the, you can get some of this practice through meditation. You can get some of this practice through being in tune with how your body reacts to things. It is not easy. It is very hard. But if you practice feeling, uh, here's one way to kind of help practice that at home. Turn on a news channel, maybe one that's of an opposite type of political leaning that you adhere to, and you hear something that starts to trigger you, notice how you feel before you yell something back at the TV, before you point to your spouse or whatever and say, "Did you hear what that idiot say?" No. Just stop. Think about what's going on. How are you feeling? How is your blood pressure going up? Is your are you getting angry? Are you feeling you need to defend something? Hold that feeling. Step away from that feeling if you can. Appreciate that you are doing this because that is a biological response. But remember, we're above that, and try to see, now what can I do with that? Knowing that I react this way, that doesn't mean I have to act on this way. And so that really becomes a powerful tool of not disengaging, not being distant from those who are trying to give you good counsel. That's what we're saying. It's being able to hold that space of the conversation, do the active listening, like Jason said, understanding how you're feeling. Of are you starting to fight? Are you starting to flight? Or are you starting to freeze? So that can then inform your next steps. And guess what? It's okay to take a couple breaths, to take a brief pause, take a deep breath before you respond. And try to think, as you take that deep breath, what's the best response to give in a situation, right? Not the one you want to say, not what your inner voice says, but what's the best response to give at this time? And so if you want to say, you jerk face, I can't believe you said that to me. No. Can you find something that provides harmony and lets you hold that space so you understand the context of what they're trying to do to bring some correction, and that way you have time to process it. And that's really the big takeaway there, is that give yourself time to process that additional correction that you may be given.
Yeah, John, I wanted to mention something. You talk about the fact that we have the prefrontal cortex, and you mentioned evolved, and biologically it is evolved and it is capable, but it isn't necessarily evolved or available just because the capacity is there. Just like you can have a brand new computer, it may be able to do nothing unless you have the actual software in there to execute at a moment's notice, especially if you have a solid state hard drive, courtesy of our patrons. Thank you so very much. I love you so much, because my computer feels so much better now. I know.
It's in flight mode right now.
I digress. But very importantly, if you think about, I saw a comment here by Danny where it says that most of the time our body doesn't even understand why we react the way that we do. And although he is right, we cannot have a fixed mentality. We need to adopt a growth mentality in which I'm not lazy, or I'm not tardy, or I'm not this. These things don't define you.
Right.
You have opportunities to self-assess and prepare yourself for the moment in which you will need to execute these things. So the best thing you can do is actually, whenever presented with some sort of criticism, and of course I'm saying this from a point of, I am developing this in myself. Just like Jason mentioned, like, this is something that is, you can ask my wife. I don't take criticism very well. And it's usually after the fact that I consider, you know what, they may be right. And then I have to resort to apologizing for my reaction or whatever. But one way in which I am actually working to develop this is to, once I am outside of that confrontation, for me to really think and say, do I have room for improvement in that area? And then try to nourish my mind and feed my mind with the right information, so that if I ever come across that situation again, I'm able to execute in a more positive way. Because usually we don't have time to react. We just react with whatever we have in our brain. So I encourage the brothers to do that. Don't think, oh, I'm just a jerk, or no, I just tell it like it is. You know how weak that is. Like, brothers, seriously, if you say that phrase, I just tell it like it is, bro, that is so weak.
Or that's the
Because
way
it
I've always
just shows.
been, right?
Exactly.
That's how I am.
Yeah, don't do that, please. Like, people lose respect whenever, well, it is what it is.
It's me. I can't change me.
You can
That's
do
the one
better,
thing
bro.
in my life I just don't have control over.
You're in the wrong fraternity, bro.
Yeah.
Yep.
You want green beans, go to the Rotary.
Green beans, tomato, potatoes.
So, on that note, great topic as always. Let's start bringing it home for final thoughts, shameless plugs, and all the rest. Starting with Juan. So, what do you think? How would you
Okay.
how would you wrap things up here?
Okay. This is, I think, a very important component of keeping harmony in the lodge and in society. If we are able to develop this, not just the giving wise counsel to someone who is in error, but also being able to receive it, I think that goes a long way. Understanding who you are, understanding how you've arrived to the place in life where you are, and being able to find ways to change, I think goes a long way. Don't don't adopt a fixed mentality. You are capable of change and growth. We are capable of change and growth. And recognizing our flaws, our faults, our weaknesses is the very first step in taking a conscious, smart decision to become better. And when we join Masonry, we do so as good men to become better men through the teachings of Masonry. So we, just by that alone, we recognize that there is a possibility of us becoming better through the implementation of these lessons. So what I wish for the listeners of the Masonic Roundtable, and for those who join us on YouTube, is that you're able to take at least a little bit of this and put it to practice in your life. Actually, I hope that you feel like you have the capacity and you have the strength and discipline to actually be able to give and receive wise counsel. And I wanted to give a shout out to Melly Holmes. She had the generosity of giving us a super chat, as well as Art Monk. Thank you so much for being part of the Masonic Roundtable and making this such a fulfilling experience. And as I part ways, I want to invite you to be a part of one of the efforts that I'm the proudest of, in which I try to help people directly become better men through the application of the lessons of Masonry. Applied Freemasonry is a program of education, and one of the courses within there is called Strong Foundation, where we talk about being able to manage your time correctly, about measuring yourself and making changes that can affect your life positively. I'd love for you to be a part of it. For details, go to appliedfreemasonry.com. Good evening.
Okay, over to you, Jason. Final thoughts, shameless plugs, and all the rest.
Final thoughts. So Nightcat asked a really good question on the YouTube chat, and I'm going to paraphrase it poorly, but it came down to, okay, so you're putting yourself out there when you whisper good counsel. It could be received well, it could be received really poorly, it could make things really uncomfortable. Why take the chance? Why do it in the first place? And it really comes down to the fact that we care about people. Like, we're not sticking our noses in our brethren's business because we're nosy. We aren't doing it out of pride or arrogance that we know all the answers. We're doing it because we see something, we care about the person, and we want the best for our brother and for our fellow human being. And so a lot of what we do, especially when it comes to self-improvement, flows out of an extension of a love for each other, and the fact that we deeply care for those around us. And so that to me is very much reason enough to keep putting myself out there and keep building up men into the best forms that they can be, myself included. So yeah, we care about each other, which is why we correct each other. If I didn't care about you, I wouldn't bother. And so it's just, that's my 2 cents on that one. Appreciate everybody sticking with us as we were out the last couple weeks. We are back and excited to be bringing you a lot of great content over the next couple weeks and months. So coming up on 6 years here on the Masonic Roundtable next month.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's awesome. And this has been a great journey, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes us in the future. But everybody, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for all of your questions. Thank you so much for your engagement in the YouTube chat, especially to all of you, including Brother Eric from Ex Oriente. It's great to have you with us. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week and talking about something different. Back to you, John.
Okay, back to me. So here we go. Final thoughts on this topic. There's so many ways we can go with this, because it really comes down to relationships, as Jason said. There was another phrase from a management perspective that I've heard, is to praise in public and reprimand in private. And so you should be doing that as you do good counsel. If it's praiseworthy, stand up and let the whole lodge know that you're really proud of the brother for acting a certain way, or holding themselves, or the way they did the ritual, or the way they've done this or that. But if you have something that you're trying to correct them and give them some suggested improvements, it's going to be something that has to be more personal, more private, and something that you have to engage with on a relationship basis. And so I do want to encourage all of the younger Masons that you do have the power to correct the oldest past master of that lodge. It is a power. With all great power comes great responsibility, and so it is a superpower.
Thanks, Uncle Ben.
Yes, make sure that Uncle Ben did not die in vain, but that you use this power to promote the peace and harmony of the lodge and the fraternity as a whole. And so it all comes down to active listening. It all comes down to relationships, and making sure that we become the better versions of ourselves and the better version of this fraternity that we aspire to be. And all of that is possible through a lot of the support from all of you who listen to us every week, who come back and support us through Patreon or through the YouTube chat. Again, another shout out to Melly Holmes for her support, as well as Joe Martinez with the last minute #careless whisper. You know he doesn't mean it, but he likes to have the condescending hashtag of the show. But this has been a fantastic episode, and we look forward to seeing you next week for another great piece of Masonic education. Thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.
Keep whispering, good counsel.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Man, no one understands the words that are coming out of your mouth. You're Puerto Rican.
Cállate.